Good morning and welcome to the WellMed Charitable Foundation Caregiver Teleconnection session. Today we have our expert who is a psychologist as well as a licensed social worker, Dr. James Huysman, who is going to talk to us about taking your mask off. And this is so pertinent because Halloween's right around the corner here, but we all know that sometimes we wear a mask for other people. And with that, Jamie, would you introduce yourself and would you start your presentation?
I'll be happy to, Evelyn. And thank you so much. I enjoy working with you as well. The best thing I think I ever did in my life was to change professions 30 years ago and become a licensed clinical social worker. And so I know that is your world, our world, and we're very family focused to all the caregivers that are tuning in today. It is a bias of mine that if you're working with a therapist or a geriatric care manager, I do think you should look for a licensed clinical social worker because they're very family systems oriented, and caregiving is a very family system focused process. Today, I really want to talk to you because today, really, being that it's October and the end of October, I must tell you, I just wanted to talk about the mask, the mask that we wear. Unfortunately, as caregivers, it often is a mask that we can wear 365 days out of the year. So when I was asked to do this, I wanted to go back to a presentation about just enjoying the mask one day each year. It's truly is a prescription for a healthy life. And here's why. All of you know me that I wrote a book with the honor of working with a geriatrician named Dr. Rosemary Laird, Lisa Gibbons, who was a celebrity, and we started a charity together. The book was quite, revealing for me because it was very much something I had to dig deep in. It took me 4 years of research to help me with the foundation and to help me get the proper book out. But the title was always in suspect. And one day when I got on that plane, somebody said on my way back to Miami from Los Angeles to place the oxygen on your mask. I was that typical codependent saying, no, I'm going to give it to somebody else. But the name intrigued me, and I called the Federal Aviation Association, and they were very clear. They said, Doctor, listen, many people survive the plane crash. And if you haven't taken the oxygen first, both of you will perish. So today, as I talk to you about this concept of taking off the mask, I also want to talk to you about our mantra today is this, period, end of story. It's taking your oxygen first. So confession time to you, confession time to the world. I love Halloween. I am in my 60s. I'm an AARP daddy. I have a 12-year-old. The most fun I have in the world is on this Tuesday night when we're going to walk around with our friends and trick or treat. The mask is a blast to wear. Who's ever mask you wear, just enjoy it. There's so many cool things to do, and obviously this world gives us a lot of inspiration to wear a mask. But the Halloween traditions, they're very, very clear. I know a lot of people don't celebrate it. It's religious issues, but to be frank with you, I love it. It just allows me to get, lost in something else, identity. But that can only happen on Tuesday. If it happens throughout the year, it's a huge energy drain. And I take you back to the Japanese proverb. Okay. A Japanese proverb was really on target. It said you have three masks, basically, and three faces, they call it. And the first face is the one you show the world, the I am fine face. The second face you show to your close friends, your family, your caree that you're taking care of. That's one. The third one, and you know which one I'm talking about, is the one you show nobody usually. Show yourself. When you wake up in the morning, you look at the mirror. It's the truest reflection of who you are. And today I'm speaking to the face in that third one, world of reflection behind the mask. Okay. Because that I'd like to talk about in light of Halloween. That mask, sometimes when we get dressed up on Halloween, is a blast because we can take it off. But when we don't take it off, we have this huge thing bearing over us on a day-to-day basis that I say saps our energy. Why? Well, to wear a mask means that we literally have to have it on. It's uncomfortable. We've all known about that since COVID. And we then have to kind of hide our real feelings from others, right? And to hide them, we have to employ defense mechanisms. We almost have to have little white lies, little talk about I'm fine, which is the acronym is freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. When I run groups and somebody says fine as opposed to emotion, I realize they have a mask on. They don't want us close. They want us to be, afar from it. Thank you for asking, but I'm fine. Please don't ask any further. Listen, it's pretty clear here in this diagram, right? There's an invented self. There's a self that we have called an image, and all of us have it. In fact, as a psychologist, and I'll introduce myself throughout the presentation as Evelyn asked, um, as a psychologist, my patients, when I see them, they all come in and they all want, me to understand the masked person, the good person, the one that maybe during their childhood was the hero. I'm doing the best I can, and I totally understand that, right? But the real person usually appears in my own therapy with them or with a couple over about 3, 4, 5 sessions when they find there's therapeutic safety, when they know that this is a confidential setting, when they know that as a therapist, we don't judge. And then we start seeing underneath the mask these things kind of like, anger, shame, contempt for certain questions or for certain people. And even the concept of being abandoned, and I don't want to be abandoned. And that we find out over time, therapeutic safety. I'm a Jungian trained therapist who later on became very much intrigued and certified in trauma work. But Carl Jung would always say, look, if we create a safe environment, 20% of the rest of it is what comes out of that. And that's these things that the false self has. So over time, in a safe place, I'll hear about what's really going on. Okay. And for caregiving, I want to include this. What really comes on is this, because I really speak to you as an audience, basically through my own recovery. I came from a household that was very challenging, a lot of psychological conflict, a lot of arguing. My sister and I really didn't understand what a healthy relationship was. And childhood, as a psychologist and a social worker, is basically, I know this sounds odd, it's a prisoner of war situation because we come into this world with a blank slate. When things are not working out well at home or we have to adjust and we can't be authentic, okay, we then sometimes take on masks. And that mask we later on called codependency. And it's the mask of a scapegoat, of a victim. I came out of my family as a family hero. Many of us as caregivers, whether it's family or professional, came out really thinking that we are heroes, and we came back into the healthcare field to give back. But really, at the end of the day, these were all kind of strategies. They were all masks that we had to wear in our own childhood. I bring up my own clinical situation because I want you as an audience to start thinking about yours. I don't think you need to write down the things I say here. As Evelyn said, it's recorded. I would love for you to start thinking at the heartfelt level and not the head. As I work with our doctors at WellMed, I'm also the chief compassion officer there, and I work with our employees and our doctors. When I give somebody a book, whether it's on codependent masks or whether it's on trauma, I find they do read well and they become very knowledgeable, but they also cut themselves off from the experiential side, which is really, really their heart. And I always say the longest trip you take is from your head to your heart. All over the country, especially with our foundation, but certainly listen, the foundation at WellMed. Okay, we have an amazing caregiver group there, and we have conferences, caregiver SOS, and those from Texas who get a chance to see it know it. But many of our caregivers come in with the "I am fine" mask, right? I am fine. Caregiving is a very difficult thing. When I wrote the book, I realized there was a lot of shame and stigma associated, just like in mental health, with telling people you're a caregiver. For me, that mask hides a lot, and to keep that mask takes in a lot of energy. I often say as a therapist, because I believe in the neurological approach to this world, and I think family caregivers, if you're listening here, we neurologically now have answers we didn't have before. But I always throw this in. It looks funny. Basically, we have a lot to learn, but we only are neurological systems. So we wore masks for 3 years at COVID. It was really difficult. We put it, we didn't come outside. We hid our faces. Many people couldn't see our smiles. And when I saw this, I said, I have to bring this to y'all because there's I sign a lot of emotional support letters for my patients for animals, and they all talk to me about neurological systems. So this is so cute because you took your dog or your cat and you locked them in the trunk of your car for 30 minutes. Here's the difference. You could come back and open it up, and your cat or your dog will look at you and they'll love you and lick you, lick you, lick you, right? But your partner will stab you or yell at you or run away or call you names. Why I say that to you is because the neurological system, when we are not wearing a mask, and animals did not, right? Right? They were defense mechanisms. You see, you go to humane societies, you see damage, fight, flight, freeze responses, but they are much more likely to come around with love and corrective stuff. But animals to me always have this, like children. It's like children that they're wonderful until the adults screw them up. So this conversation with you as a caregiver today and about Halloween and the mask was important to me because I get to define things that maybe you didn't understand even about my psychological world. So for years, Carl Jung and Freud and Rogers, we had psychotherapeutic world. We had Buddhas that asked you to go to a mountain as a caregiver and meditate in Tibet. Listen, the real deal, and we found this out in the late 80s and early 90s when we started with a concept called dialectical behavioral therapy. I know it's a mouthful, but we started seeing that the mind is absolutely retrainable. And we went back, and I sit on the Polyvagal Institute. And again, I'll throw certain names out to you, like Dr. Gabor Mate or Bessel van der Kolk. They're trauma specialists. We found out, caregivers, that you don't really have to sit on a mountain, and meditate for the rest of your life and find enlightenment. That enlightenment was never the goal. Wasn't the goal of the child in those first 8 years of their personality being developed. And it's not really the goal of health and healing. We all thought having a utopian society of that would be good. No, what we're seeking is authenticity. What the baby or child before 8 years old wanted was authenticity. The baby wanted to cry, wanted a cookie. Okay, the mom needed to hold it and really be authentic with the crying and maybe say you get the cookie after dinner or not right now. But it wasn't like children should be seen and not heard. We as a children should really strive to be authentic. And so we as adults don't have enlightenment as our goal. Our goal, and as family caregivers, this is where your energy returns, is authenticity. It's taking off the mask and uncovering your true self. And so what that mask, that denial, that projection, that I can't look at myself sort of thing, and I need to basically develop something that I'm not, what that does is it thwarts the authentic self. And this is where our energy as caregivers are devised, is through our authentic self. It's not wearing the mask. It's not managing other people. It's not codependently being the hero, the lost child, the victim. Our strength comes from our ability to being in our authentic self without encumbrances. Okay. That's the ultimate secret to life, is to be able to say what's on our mind. And if the person in front of us, if you do it compassionately, nicely, the person in front of us has a problem with that, they need to call their therapist. They need to go to somewhere else. We are not responsible. We are responsible for taking that mask off and being able to say something. So at WellMed, when I work with our staff, they ask me, well, Doc, what is leadership? And I always say authenticity is your most precious commodity as a leader. Because to be authentic is also to say that we are, successful because we failed before. We are, pretty because we know there's ugly things about us. We are courageous because we've been fearful. So we're two sides of a coin, caregivers, because we're simply human beings, not human doings, right? And the two sides of the coin is our vulnerable side and the fact that we can accept our vulnerable side. Carl Jung said, embracing the shadow, inviting it to lunch. So at the end of the day, if you're a family caregiver and you're wondering why you're listening to me taking off the mask, is because you're going to find strength while you peel the onion to authenticity. And that is a lifelong process. Look, I have had 30 years of clinical training. Of course, I've been seeing my own therapist probably for, I don't know, gosh, 18 years, 50 years now, because 58 years. I'm 50. No, my mom took me there, forgive me, when I was 18. So let's just say it's 50 years. But what really is the deal to us as family caregivers, if we're actually taking off the mask, we're also starting to peel the onion. And I say it's an onion because every time we peel a layer, we cry. So peeling off the onion is actually bringing authenticity. It's also being able to set down the mask. And if you have to do this in a safe environment, I agree. I don't want to be Pollyanna. You need healthy, safe people that meet you halfway. You don't want to expose yourself. But as a Jungian trained therapist, I wanted to include something from my key initial, theorist I fell in love with, 30 years ago. That was Carl Jung. He said, embracing our shadow is critical. Embracing our shadow is really what the mask covers, is that side of us, is that side that we never want to show people, that side we've not ever come to grips with and befriended. And when he said that if you invite your shadow to lunch, you start healing. So your vision will become clear, he said, only when you can look into your own heart. And who looks outside dreams and who looks inside awakes. So as a family caregiver, when you speak with me, obviously, I'm a trauma-informed, licensed clinical social worker and psychologist. I have deep, how do I say, biases. I don't believe we know this world at all until we know our world. That self-awareness leads to social awareness. But as a family caregiver, and I too, both as a professional and family caregiver, really say I'm guilty because I've been in recovery from codependency, is that when you wear the codependent mask, when you come out as the hero, the victim, whoever, you hide your authentic self, okay? Really leaning in, as Gabor Mate says, is when you pay attention to your own insecurities. So they're not there to taunt you. These are the shadow, but to show you where to heal. That's the beauty of it. So what the mask that we have in our lives hides is really a brain response. I know this is difficult to sometimes to grasp, but those who have tuned in monthly to my conversations, you'll know that every one of my conversations with you begins with the brain, because I'm neurologically driven as a psychologist. When I looked at all different models for caregivers over the years, which were addiction models, which were 12-step models, Jungian, Freudian, Rogerian, I came to find out that the trauma model is the model that really helps caregivers get well. Okay. And what does that all mean? Well, that means that we have a fight, flight, fear, and fawn response that happens. Look, you didn't cause it. It comes from our childhood. Okay. It's our childhood. It comes from the first 8 years of our childhood. And how the fight, flight, fear response comes, it's an actual brain response. Okay, there's portions of our brain. There's the prefrontal cortex. There's the amygdala. There is also the brainstem where we kind of react. What happens with as caregivers when we're emotionally, overwhelmed with our loved one, our lack of taking care of ourselves, the amygdala will shut down the prefrontal cortex. Okay, the prefrontal cortex is where common sense is, executive reasoning, being proactive, having emotional intelligence and being way ahead either of our loved one, because it's their care, we're taking care of the hospital. But if you're flush with emotions and anxiety, it will shut down that center. So it's critical for us to find ways in our lives, okay, to find yourself. And I call finding yourself is using really strategic models to deal with the fight, flight, freeze. So I'm going to actually give you an antidote about this. And Halloween always tells me that this is a good time. Is stop wearing your masks and start offering your authentic self, not just to yourself, but to your loved one you're taking care of, to your doctor who's taking care of you and your loved one, to your own therapist, to whomever. Because the mask puts us, and I was a film major, in this role of producing and directing our environment. Okay. We don't want anybody to understand what's under the mask. So we start doing things with our people around us to hide our authentic self. That is an energy vampire. One of my favorite groups, Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan said the world is a vampire. And I would totally agree with him. Okay. It's a vampire until you, and I'm talking to you as a family caregiver, realize that can be responsible for a new path of taking your mask off and start retraining your brain. Okay. Interesting that family caregivers before the 1990s just used to come to see me or their therapist. We would talk and help and give them education, but we would be triggering, believe this or not, their fight, flight, and freeze response. We didn't understand the trauma model and how it pertained to family caregivers. It's a wonderful model. It's beyond theory now. We have tremendous metrics and outcomes. But the model, why it's so good, is that it allows you to become your own therapist. That if you retrain your brain, take this mask off, you yourself will start leaning in to that shadow, leaning in to the childhood complex we call post-traumatic stress, leaning into how we got wired to have this fight, flight, freeze response. When we lean in, we kind of what we call reparent ourselves. Because I'm not indicting your parents, I indict mine in my therapy. I do think they probably did the best they could, but, and it's a big but, we really have to acknowledge that whatever they were taught by their parents, or mine was maybe worse. They read, the book by Dr. Spock, who I thought was an emotional abuser when I reread it over and over. They did the best they could. They really did, but it just doesn't work. I mean, it didn't work. It created in me wounds beyond belief. We call innocent abuses. And my beautiful wife, who went into recovery now for 14 years from alcoholism, she was in that kind of household where children should be seen and not heard. When they talked, it wasn't psychologically safe. She was usually referred. Now you can hear me, right? Good. All right. You can all hear me now. Something happened here with the internet. Evelyn, are you with me?
I'm with you.
Good. Let's all
I'm
come where
sorry about the tech glitches.
no problem. The beauty of all these tech glitches also it puts us as caregivers in what really the real world. And I'm going to show you all breath work at the end because this is, as you know, if you've ever tuned in with me, breath work is a quick way to retrain our brain in the moment. We as adults can literally shift the chemistry of our body. So when glitches happen, and I'm at United and WellMed, listen, life happens like this. And so I always look for these opportunities. If it had gone a little longer, I would have done a little bit more breath work because it's 80 seconds, but we had a quick fix. But what I want to tell you, when we take this mask off, that what we don't understand clinically, and I'm going to try to simplify it with you, is with this new model, okay, leaning in to what we call childhood, or what I call basically complex or children, CPTSD, children post-traumatic stress disorder. It's kind of what we call the over time, the abuses of dealing with our authenticity as children, being seen, not heard, told us, put in corners, timeouts. Dr. Spock would tell, my mom said, let him cry all night, sort of stuff. These are things that we need now to understand, probably tattooed our brain, okay? But now we can retrain our brain. The beauty of this for a caregiver is we want resilience as a caregiver. We all go through some very difficult times taking care of our loved ones. Even more important, taking care of ourselves. How about taking care of our long distance caregivers, right? They're all triggers as childhood stuff. Well, complex PTSD or childhood PTSD or understanding, reparenting ourselves is the key to resilience. I know that sounds odd, and it sounds toxic positivity, but it's not. When we lean in to stress, or we lean into reparenting our brain, or we lean into our fight, flight, freeze response, and we calm our bodies down through emotional regulation and being with healthy people, that is the way to develop resilience. Amazing. Nobody's really talked about that. But resilience is leaning in and embracing the journey. 3 steps forward, 2 backwards. Resilience and retraining the brain now is, if you can understand what I'm saying and realize that we do have a mask on, we're sometimes really covering our fight, flight, freeze. Today, I want you to start reframing your thinking. Okay. You can always go back to this presentation on Caregiver SOS. You can contact me. But let's reframe this, because psychology has reframed itself in the last 100 years. This model now, this complex trauma model, is what we're seeing is creating amazing outcomes. So if you do that, I want you to, when you get off this, or when you ask questions later, clarify your purpose and meaning. What is it? Well, your purpose and meaning is 2 things. Is to be authentic, and it's to have a healthy, realizing a healthy 50-50 relationship with somebody. So it's being in an emotional regulation, loving yourself, because our first toxic relationship is with ourselves coming out of childhood. And then it's being around healthy people so we can get well. Our self-awareness in this process of embracing our traumas or doing trauma reduction techniques, but I'll show you in a moment, it deepens our connectivity. Also, you can become your own personal coach. And when you do go to this model, you'll start practicing positivity, not because of just the words, but positivity is the relieving of your stress. It's stress reduction. We all have moderate stress, but if you'd like to understand leaning in, and Dr. Daniel Goleman called this one too, emotional IQ, EQ, builds resilience. So if you start embracing yourself and now finally reparenting yourself, that is the start. And as a caregiver, I'm going to ask you today, this is the paradigm shift. I want you to realize that when you start taking this mask off, that you had to be something for everybody, that you had to be the hero, you had to be the perfect child. We started talking about the 4 agreements, you had to be perfect. No, you don't. You have to acknowledge that probably our parents did do a lot of things that created this fight, flight, freeze. But I want you to understand that what parenting really is. It's to be fair, consistent, and available. It's not just saying the word I love you, it's acting fair. And I want you to start today to be fair, consistent, available with yourselves. When I wrote the book, Take Your Oxygen First, it was all built around the codependency model of caregiving. Why is that? Well, because I'm a recovering codependent. I came out of because there's a fight, flight, freeze, and fawn response. And the fawn response was the child becoming what it needed to become. Remember when I showed you the hero child? Well, I need to be the hero. My parents, at some point in time, that's how I got their attention. I want you to understand the old model of looking at family caregiving through codependency eyes is not as accurate. I don't even recommend my book often now because I don't have enough trauma-informed interventions in it. Okay, codependency is basically looking to develop your self-esteem by people, places, and things, external. I want you to start realizing that if you start reparenting yourself as a family caregiver, start really taking care of yourself, you're going to go into the world we call interdependency. You do not have to lean in with a role. No, you can show up in your life and be honest. You can even be honest with your loved one. And now people say, oh, my loved one's got Alzheimer's 3rd stage. Can I be really honest? Listen, the beauty of that, your honesty, if it's done in a compassionate way, is that your loved one will feel safer with you. And I'll show you why. So understand this. I'm going to give you the key to all of this. Not coming to see me necessarily, but being your own therapist. I want you to have a healthy relationship with yourself. What does that mean? That means taking your stress reduction and emotionally regulating by finding the things that you love to do. Yoga, Pilates, walking around, taking, running. I don't know what it is. I have one person at WellMed who literally gets calm answering telephones and crochets. These are ways to calm our emotional system down. I've asked her manager, I said, throughout 8 hours while she's taking patients' calls, can she crochet? We tried it out for a month. She was never more effective ever in the job. And she also did not have anger and blame. She is able to calm herself. So I want you to understand, when you take this mask off, what's the difference between having the mask and not having the mask? And we do this with ourselves and with others. So a relationship that makes sense healthy wise with others and yourself is one that you compromise, you stay close with yourself. It's equal. I always say that, people burn out. Why? Because when one person works harder than the other. Okay. So I'm going to show you emotional regulation techniques in a minute, but I'm also going to say that you cannot get well and use them if you're in an unhealthy relationship. So I'm going to ask you also to go back to and audit your relationships. If you have bullies or people who tell you what to do, or people who discount you and they don't have empathy and accountability, chances are there's a manipulative, emotional, abusive situation you're walking back into. It's stealing you away, and you have to wear your mask, you feel. Well, I'm going to say it's better to start moving those relationships out, because when you take your mask, okay, masks hide us from connections with ourselves. The new model, which I'm very privileged to be, I'm on the board of the Polyvagal Institute with Dr. Gabor Mate. And again, go to the YouTubes and look him up. He is the guru of really not just children and our development, but how we take these brains into our lives as caregivers, and of not just our loved ones, but of ourselves. So safety is critical. Neurological safety, that's what emotional regulation is, and being around healthy people. That's the only way we grow. Safety is not the absence of a threat. It's the presence of connection. So when my clients come to me, they say, well, doc, listen, I had a tough childhood. All of us did, by the way, because again, our parents really did not know what they're doing. And there's a lot of innocent things happen. Well, we get screwed up in relationships called childhood. We also get well in relationships with healthy people. So a healthy relationship, okay, and I want you to start auditing your lives and with people, not just your family too, long distance caregivers, doctors, but I want you in a healthy relationship where people communicate well with you, where they're committed to you, they bear witness to you, where they've proven that you can trust them and they trust you and they respect you. They're not just giving you toxic positive things, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. They're listening to you. I also want you to see that those relationships that you're in that have lack of communication, that people control, which I think is a 4-letter word, they lack trust, it's not equal. I'm going to start asking you as a caregiver, start moving away from them. Start finding maybe a third party to help you. And sometimes if it's so toxic, you got to have no contact, but sometimes it has to be modified contact. But my key to you in taking off a mask, and when you do this, you're going to develop self-awareness. Self-awareness is the key to our radical acceptance of ourselves and the person in front of us. If you're self-aware, you will become socially aware. If you're self-aware that you are strictly a human being caregiver, you're not a human doing, you realize you're strong because you're weak, you're beautiful because you know your flaws, you're a lover because you've been a fighter, you're fearless because you've been afraid, you're a dichotomy, right? You're getting the hang of this, you're wise because you know you've been foolish, you laugh because of sadness. By the way, laughter is a neurological regulator. These are all who we are. Okay. I'm not that hero. Okay. And you're not the hero. You cannot change the disease of your loved one. What you can do is allow somebody with a chronic terminal acute illness to feel safer with you. So our masks, if you keep it on, deny our story. And I think each one of you have an amazing story. And when we deny our story, it defines us, that denial. When we own our story, which is the authentic path, we write new endings. Can't wait till you explore Brené's work. When I give you Gabor, I give you Brené's name. I don't just give it because they're gurus and talking heads. They're very, very learned people. But I choose them. I'm very fortunate to be on certain boards and understand them as colleagues. I choose them because they're also in recovery. Meaning Dr. Gabor Mate is almost 80 years old, and he's still learning new things about his childhood. And he brings it to you as a vulnerable person, but as a doctor who really is very key on trauma work. Brené, amazing woman on boundaries, but she talks to you about through her pain. I try to bring to you my story because I do think our stories are our best way to relate to people. Now, I would rather relate to it by being just healthy and have it attracted to me, my story, which is a healing response. But today I bring it to you because you're just like me. We are. In fact, the key to compassion, y'all, is 3 words: just like me. Understand fear, people in front of you, road rage, anger. Guess what? none of us want to be judged on our worst day. Everybody's just like us. And to be compassionate, that's it. So go to Brené's work. I often tell you to this, but I'll say it over and over again because I do love the fact that as family caregivers, when we take the mask off, having our energy back is about setting boundaries. Okay. Realizing that the word no is a full sentence, full stop. Okay. It's not dancing at everybody's wedding, right? It's realizing that your feelings and that your self-care is critical. And it's probably the most important thing because it's what's going to allow you to be on 2 feet to bear witness to your loved one's pain. It's going to be the one that puts you on 2 feet to be psychologically safe, to come up with innovative solutions with your doctor for your loved ones and for yourselves. But understand, when you fail to set boundaries and you hold yourself or people accountable, you feel mistreated. So, hey, listen, this looks like a banner you see at the Macy's parade, but it's really Gandhi's words. You, caregiver, has to be the change you want to see in this world. And what I'm giving you today is I ask you to take your mask off, is basically success through you being your own therapist, that you're a success when you've made friends with your past. Remember, invite your shadow to lunch. You're a success when you're focused on the present. Okay, not the anxiety of tomorrow, the fears you got from yesterday. And you are a success when you're optimistic about your future. And to be optimistic about your future means we have to lay the mask down. And, as I work with my daughter, I don't tell her what to do. We just have jokes. We play. I think the greatest way to teach an adult is to watch a child play. Playing and a minute of laughter and making sure you don't take yourself or even the situation as seriously boosts your immune system. It really does. The phenomenon when you saw, my father was a Holocaust survivor. So some of you may or may not know that my father passed away recently. And today, I'm just have some heavy thoughts because we're going through the ceremony of all that. But I remember my father and I had he couldn't talk about it. The pain and trauma was so bad. But we joke, we laugh. Why you see a lot of, I think, Jews who came out of the Holocaust or their kids who came out are now comedians. Humor neuroregulates and calms our neurosystem down. Okay, it really does. I'm asking you, if you in doubt, and even if I am speaking too fast today, go with the concept of love. Okay, love of yourself brings authenticity and attachment. Reparenting yourself is love yourself. Love's your job description, caregiver. No matter what you do for a living, if you ever feel unsure of what you're supposed to do in a situation, a good rule of thumb is do the right thing, right? Always do what leads to greater love. To do that, we have to start loving ourselves. And that's why I say to you, in this model, I know it just looked like platitudes before, but when you want to lean in and take that mask off, it's all found through stress reduction, right? When you feel your body and it's dysregulated, you feel your body, it's headaches, migraines, your legs hurt, something's going on. Your body's telling you something. I want you to listen to your body. I also think that your mind can do anything. Unfortunately or fortunately, it can project, deny, defend. I'm a hypnotherapist, so I try to ask people to listen to their body, not their mind. The mind can relapse back to the child too quick, but your body keeps the score. And that's a wonderful book that if you'd like to read on trauma, if you're interested, it's called The Body Keeps a Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. All you need to take out of this, if you can take your mask off, feel in your body, there's regulation. I want you to be the best friend you can in your new parenting of yourself. I want you to go to a support group. Maybe you've got a caregiver SOS near you. Maybe it's a hospital and they have caregiver programs. Maybe it's a church, synagogue, or ashram. I want you to go ahead and put people around you. Remember, healthy people allow you to heal. I want you to do breath work. I'm going to show you right now how to do it. I want you to, if you're feeling dysregulated, I don't want you to go into victim or martyr mode. I want you to go into the gym. I want you to go take a walk. I want you to find a comfortable position, to have yoga, meditate. Understand our journey as family caregivers and taking the mask off is from our head to our heart. And I do this at WellMed with everybody, but the longest journey you're ever going to make is from your head to your heart. You cannot, family caregiver, read yourself into healing. My book, Take Your Action First. I love Miguel Ruiz. It was brought up before agreements. But whoever brought that up, I'd love for you to go get his workbook too. The Four Agreements workbook. It's experiential. Because when I send my doctors to understand themselves better, I said, don't read, you do it. You know, experientially, you have to do it. That's reparenting ourselves and changing our brain is actually going through it. You know, creating self-awareness in and of itself will reduce your anxiety. It reduces your stress. Okay. It reduces your anger. And then you have an idea of social things. So I want you to start understanding how to live in the present. I'm going to give you breath work. I'm going to give you plenty of time for questions and answers right afterwards. But living in the present is literally taking your mask off. Okay. It's literally saying, I don't know what to do at this moment. Maybe I should ask for help. It's saying I'm fearful, but I know I'm resilient. I can get through this moment. You know, I cry in front of my daughter because I tell my daughter I'm very resilient and pain is inevitable. You've heard me say that. Suffering is not. In that world of Buddhism, you know, they always say it's a world of suffering. And I say, no, not really. This is where I have an issue with that concept. Suffering is the second arrow. The first arrow is of pain. We know that's inevitable. Suffering is trying to control something that's not controllable, right? Some other person, some other disease, you know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. Suffering is trying to change that which you cannot, but you can change your approach to things. And you can do that right now as I teach you again the ability to use your breath. I don't think there's a better intervention for first responders. That was my first love 30 years ago in Miami, was working with police, firemen, emergency medical technicians. They run into burning homes when others are running out. Very reactive way of living life, and they make mistakes. They might shoot somebody, they may get shot, they may make a decision. Guess what, family caregivers? Guess what? You are family first responders. So clinically over time, as a therapist many years ago, I would see not my cops in my waiting room, then I see family caregivers, and they had the same clinical outlook. They had the same doe in the headlights stare. And so understand you too are running into burning homes every day with your loved ones, with your life, with your job, with your doctors, while people are running out. So today, again, as always, I want to give you what I think is the best trauma reduction technique that can shift your body's chemistry. And all emotional regulators, all that stress reduction shifts your body's chemistry. You have to realize that we are strictly chemistry. We have dopamine, we have, neurotransmitters in our brain. We create hormones like oxytocin. I'm going to actually show you how to do that. And it shifts everything. We can go from a dysregulated caregiver, really can, to a regulated person. Now, it's not easy, but you don't have to sit on a mountain in Tibet for the rest of your life either. What I did with my cops is I taught them simply how to take a despairing moment, a hopeless moment, a depressed moment, and how to get engaged and make it more positive. Okay. Breath work isn't your only way. That's one grounding technique, but it returns presence to them, energy to them. Okay. They were able to take their mask off when they could actually attend to their own selves and be engaged in their own health. So all I'm going to give time to have Q&A here. Many of you may also, by the way, I also want to keep some humor. You could tell me what you're going to dress like for Halloween. And again, that's all acceptable because it's only one night, right? The rest of the time, you're going to take care of what we call your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve goes from the cortex of your brain through healing organs into your gut. We have never really befriended family caregivers, our neurological system. Okay. When we were born, we came out this OR and lights, camera, action. Our families didn't really know what they were doing a whole lot. And we got into fight, flight, freeze. Really, the antidote, which is taking off your mask, is to do trauma reduction techniques. Okay. Why? It's vagus nerve work. The vagus nerve goes from the cortex of your brain into your healing organs. I know you've seen into your gut. You all watch those infomercials about gut health. All of that is things that we've forsaken. We put a mask on. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. It dysregulates our vagus nerve. Breath work is the only thing humans are the only people that can use breath work to shift the chemistry of their body and grow a psychologically safe environment. The gentleman who runs our organization, Polyvagal Institute. It's an anthropologist. And he said to me, Jamie, look, dinosaurs, survival of the fittest wasn't the gigs. Humans evolved because we could actually neurologically self-regulate, and we got into communities and created innovative strategies. So today I'm going to show you how to do that in the moment, whether you're with your loved one or a whole group, and you're going to be the experts. You don't need to have license or certification to do breath work. But I'm going to give you something that's going to ground you on 2 feet, transform your body chemistry, and give control back to you. Now, there's other powerful grounding techniques, okay? But even if you do something alternative, I want you to do something in the next 80 seconds. Is that a lot? I'm going to ask you as a family caregiver rhetorical questions. Are you worth 80 seconds to calm your body down, to make the right proactive decision? Because you can unlock the power of the vagus nerve and self-heal in the moment. You can take your mask off, and that mask of fight, flight, fear. You can do the breath work. Like I said, go to Pilates, yoga, gratitude, journaling, do a lot of things. But you can do that, and it'll shift your brain. Okay, that's the beauty of neuroplasticity. So those who know me well. I'm going to do the breath work. Those who don't want to do the breath work, I never commandeer your breath. I think the independence of your choices and the agency of your body is paramount. If you don't want to do the breath work, that's cool too. In the 80 seconds, though, we're going to actually close our eyes. If those people who do not want to do it, you can be silent with your eyes closed. That's certainly calming. Certainly a chemistry change. You can also, if you will, go to a safe place in your mind when you close your eyes that you once were. Touch it, feel it, smell it. You can do that for 80 seconds, and that's really a calmer, having your feet in the ground like this picture shows you. Or you can actually pray. That's an interesting thing. Now, it doesn't matter if it's Buddha, Moses, Jesus, Allah, all paths lead to the righteous. But what prayer does, and that's the beauty of why prayer kind of is cool, it's a neuroregulator. It retrains the brain. So it doesn't matter really the ideology behind it. It is the act of going within. It's the reparenting side. So that's a grounding technique. Or you can just stay silent, or my loved one, like I told you, my wife has went into recovery. All she does every day when she closes her eyes or in the morning, she does a gratitude exercise. That too is a grounding thing. Any grounding, trauma reduction, earthing technique will change your body chemistry. Humans can take that and make an intervention. So I had the privilege years ago of working with Dr. Andy Weil. You can go to his website. It's Dr. Weil, drweil.com. You also can go to YouTube, by the way. I just want you to know that Dr. Weil, when you put 478 and put his name in, comes out, does a 2-minute video. It's extraordinarily good. He's very cute. It's like a cherub, isn't he? He's at the University of Arizona. He's done this for years. So I really think Andy hung the moon. He's an integrative medicine doctor at the University of Arizona. Here's how you do 478. It's pretty easy. But when I ask you to close your eyes, and there's a lot of other breathwork techniques, by the way, galore. In my trauma work, I work with a lot of different ones. We use 478 because there's a lot of outcome studies, and at WellMed, we like that. But here's how you do it. When I ask you to close your eyes, I ask you to breathe in. You breathe in through your nostrils like this for 4 seconds because it's alive. You feel good. It's something, you know you're there. Just feel the breath work coming in your nose. Keep it in your mind for up to 7 seconds. You can picture peace, serenity, daffodils, butterflies, any guided image you want, or just stay silent. But how this works best is when you exhale, I want you to exhale like this for 8 seconds. Exhale like your whole body depends upon it. So if you're at home, you have dogs, cats, kids, or your loved one can hear you. If you're in a clinic, your patients can hear you. But exhale loudly. That exhalation, which is twice as long as the inhalation, is the secret sauce to breath work. It's what calms the vagus nerve down. Easy. You don't need a license. I would love you to train, if you will, anybody around you, your loved ones, long distance. Hey, your caree, doesn't matter what chronic illness they may have. They too can benefit from breath work. But I would like you to pay it forward. If you do it once, like now, it will calm you, it'll shift your chemistry body. If you do it 4 to 6 times a day, it allows your mind to become more proactive. And what family caregiver doesn't want to do that? So when you're feeling dysregulated and that mask is on, I want you to take the mask off, do 478, schedule in your calendar if you can. So let's all try it together. It's pretty darn easy. Let's all close our eyes. Okay. Let's put our feet on the ground. You may have shoes on. Let's feel the floor through your shoes. I'm going to do a little chair yoga before for you. And if you're barefooted, feel the floor through your feet. with your back up upright with respect. Okay, let's do a little chair yogas that feels ourselves alive. You listen to me a lot. You don't have to take it all in. I'm certainly happy to get this to you. The Charitable Foundation has a recording. So, with your eyes going forward now, looking ahead, let's just bend slowly. Do not press it. Bend slowly to your left. Bend your head towards your shoulder. Slow, slow, slow. Don't push beyond any pain. But it's awfully nice to know you're alive and you can feel that. Okay, lift your head back up so your eyes are going forward. It can be closed, of course. Go to your right side now and just go slowly, just feel that your body's movement. We are a miraculous sort of being. We can do this in yoga, we can do it in Bikram, we can do it simply in sitting here in our chair. Okay, now lift your head up again. Now go backwards, if you will, and put in the back of your head towards your back slowly. Don't go any further if you feel any pain or any anguish. It's just nice to feel the stretch. Okay, then put your head back and looking straight. And the last stretch is putting your chin to your chest slowly. And just feel the stretch. Go slow. Don't push. Don't push, put through pain. Be kind to yourselves. There you go. You just did what we call chair yoga. You can do that in the waiting room with you when you're waiting for your loved one. Hopefully, you're in there telling the doctor something, in your living room, anywhere. That was chair yoga. Now, let's do the breath. With our eyes closed, let's breathe in through our nostrils for 4 seconds. Keep it. Let's swish it around our minds for up to 7 seconds. Blow out with passion for 8. Breathe in the calmness again for 4 seconds. Keep it. Swish it around for up to 7 seconds. Blow out the anxiety for 8. Breathe in the calmness again for 4. Keep it. Swish it around for up to 7. Now, blow out with gusto for 8. Last time. Breathe in the calmness for 4 seconds. Keep it. Swish it for 7. Now, blow out all the anxiety you might be feeling today for 8. With your eyes still closed, feet on the ground, go inside that miraculous body, my family caregivers. Feel the shift in the chemistry of your body. That vagus nerve which touches your healing organs, feel your organs inside, okay? You've just created a hormone called oxytocin. It's like your happy hormone, we call it, the one you hug people with. It touches your neurotransmitters. It just calms your body down. You really did that. Only humans can do that. Less than 80 seconds. Anytime you're feeling dysregulated, do that. When you're ready, open your eyes. Come back to our meeting here, our teleconnection meeting, realizing that the caregiver SOS group cares and loves you, and realize that. I want you to understand that moment of self-compassion really changes your day. Okay, it allows you to take that mask off. A string of moments like this changes the course of your life. Listen, you guys are great. Open the window to your own healing. You go see Dr. Germer. He's at the University of Boston. He does the Mindful Self-Compassion Institute for Healthcare Providers. It's great. But I'm really always privileged to be here. We have a website that you can go to, esrt.wellmedcharitablefoundation.org. We have mindful drop-in sessions there. But I want you to understand that you need to take your oxygen first. Be the change you want to see in others. Take the mask off, okay? Except this Tuesday, October 28th, and realize that better things are coming. They really are, so keep calm. Keep calm and just breathe. Evelyn, I'm going to open it up to any questions there may be and just say thank you very much. I get to celebrate my favorite holiday next week.
Woo-hoo. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamie. You always do such a great idea. And yeah, you still talk fast.
A lot to cover.
Yes,
If you take nothing away from that whole thing, it's
no.
about stress reduction and being around healthy people. And I don't have to say another word.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It was fabulous. Folks, I have a little website. If you want to open up your phone line, you can press *6. And if you would like to unmute yourself and get on, just on chat or hand up. I know that Harry Miller had his thumb up a couple of times. I don't know, Harry, you want to talk to us?